What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again for another season video today. We're running through these near the end of the first day of August now, so we'll have about 10 more seasons to do over the next month, so we can get that done pretty easy. The 2013-2014 season was a season that I look back on, and it was the lost season for the Chicago Blackhawks. In terms of the league, a lot of big free agency signings, a lot of big trades that didn't make sense and still don't make sense, and a time of change. Realignment is in the air. Columbus and Detroit move to the east, and Winnipeg moves to the west finally. And there are 16 teams in the east, while there are only 14 teams in the west. So we'll have that for the next... Well, the east will be more populated than the west for the next 8 seasons, including this one. So let's get right into it. And I've also altered the division format. Now we have 4 divisions of 8 rather than, or 4 divisions of 7, 2 divisions of 7, 2 divisions of 8. And we've got wild cards instead of 1 through 8. It's you'll see on the playoff side, you got C1, C2, C3, P1, P2, P3, A1, A2, A3, M1, M2, M3 to talk about the divisions. And then we have wild card 1 and 2s as well. So Colorado comes back from the dead after bottoming out in the previous season. They go 52, 22, and 8, 112 points. Get the asterisks because they're back in the playoffs for the first time since 2010. And it was fraudulent. Colorado, at the time, I remember this vividly, analytics could not tell you how Colorado was winning games. Nothing made sense, and it was quickly proven in the playoffs that they were frauds. St. Louis, 52, 23, and 7, 111 points. Chicago, 46, 21, and 15, 107 points. So those are your top 3 in the division. Wild card 1, Minnesota, 43, 27, and 12 with 98 points. Dallas, back in the playoffs, 40, 31, and 11 with 91 points. So those are your Central Division teams that make the playoffs. Nashville just outside at 38, 32, and 12, 88 points. Winnipeg 37, 35, and 10, 84 points. Getting better. Winnipeg is steadily getting better. And every team in that division has a winning record. Anaheim is the leading team in the West, however, at 54 and the Pacific, 54, 20, and 8, 116 points. San Jose 51, 22, and 9, 111 points. LA 46, 20, 28, and 8 with 100 points. Out of the playoffs, you have Arizona, who just misses at 37, 30, and 15, because they're the Arizona Coyotes now. Or no, one more season of the Phoenix Coyotes, and then next season they change. Vancouver falls out of the playoffs at 36, 35, and 11 as they are coached by John Tortorella after Alain Vigneault was let go. Tortorella did not last long. And Vancouver goes through it in this season. Calgary 35, 40, and 7 with 77 points. And Edmonton, 3 first overall picks. Haven't been in the playoffs since 2006. And 29, 44, 9 at 67 points is all you have to show for it for the worst team in the West. In the Eastern Conference, your President's Trophy winners, Boston Bruins, 54, 19, and 9, 117 points. Tampa Bay goes back into the playoffs at 46, 27, and 9 in this is the Atlantic Division. Montreal, 46, 28, and 8, 100 points. Detroit is the second wild card, first time in the East, 39, 28, and 15, 93 points. And we're seeing an issue where Ken Holland is just keeping this dream alive. Detroit probably should have went into a rebuild by now. And instead, they're just keeping the playoff streak, which at this point was almost at 20 years alive. Ottawa, 37, 31, and 14, as usual, goes back and forth, and this year they fall out of the playoffs at 88 points. Toronto, 38, 36, and 8, 84 points, is out of the playoffs as well. Florida, 29, 45, and 8, 66 points. That's the team that wins their draft lottery and gets the first overall pick. That is Aaron Ekblad. Buffalo, 21, 51, and 10, 52 points as they tear everything down. They went for Ekblad, and they ended up with Sam Reinhart at second overall. And then the next season, well, the great tank for McDavid, which we'll be covering in the next episode of this series, that is. In the Metro Division, it's interesting. All the teams that were in the Atlantic Division, in the previous division format, they're all in the Metro Division in this one. Starting with Pittsburgh at 51, 24, and 7, 109 points. The Rangers at 45, 31, and 6, 96 points. Philadelphia back in the playoffs, as every even year they'll be in the playoffs, 42, 30, and 10, 94 points. And Columbus, 43, 32, and 7, 93 points is your first wild card. Back in the playoffs for the first time since 2009, and only their second time in the playoffs in their 14-year existence at this point. Washington just misses the playoffs at 38, 30, and 14 at 90 points. They fall out. New Jersey 35, 29, and 18, 88 points. Carolina 36, 35, and 11, 83 points. And the Islanders, after being the 8th seed in 2013, fall straight back out at 34, 37, and 11, 79 points. In the playoffs, Central Division team number 1 versus the Wild Card 1, Colorado versus Minnesota. Minnesota wins that series in 7 games, and Colorado does not make the playoffs again for another 4 years. Central Team 2 versus Central Team 3, St. Louis versus Chicago. Chicago wins that series in 6 after losing the first 2 games in St. Louis. Pacific Team 1, Anaheim versus Wild Card 2, Dallas. Anaheim quickly dispatches Dallas in 6. Dallas, this was their rebuild was finally coming to an end, and they were finally back in the playoffs, but they weren't there yet to contend. Pacific Team 2, San Jose versus Pacific Team 3, LA. LA, after going down 3 games to none, wins this series in 7 games. And this would start their run of just going to Game 7 and winning. In the East, number 1 Boston played Atlantic team number 1 Boston versus the Wild Card 2 team Detroit. Boston wins that series in 5. Tampa Bay, they are the Atlantic 2 team. Montreal's Atlantic 3. Montreal sweeps Tampa Bay in 4. So welcome back, Tampa. You're gone. Metro 1 is Pittsburgh versus Wild Card 1 Columbus. Pittsburgh wins that series in 6, but Columbus wins their first playoff game. New York Rangers at Metro Team 2 versus Metro Team 3 Philadelphia. The Rangers survive a scare and they win that series in 7 games. Second round, Central Team 3 Chicago versus Wild Card 1 Minnesota. Chicago wins that series in 6 as they beat Minnesota consistently. Pacific Team 1 Anaheim versus Pacific Team 3 LA. Very good series between those 2 teams. LA takes that one in 7 on the road. Though they never had home ice advantage until the final. And then they won every game 7, which they won 3 on the road. Then in Boston, Montreal, and you know what, Boston, Montreal, it's a bad matchup for Boston. If you watch the hockey guy, you know that. And Atlantic 1 and Atlantic 3, but Montreal takes it in 7 on Boston ice. Metro Team 1 Pittsburgh versus Metro 2 the Rangers. Pittsburgh loses to the Rangers in 7 games. They lose in 2013. They lose in 2014. Actually, did they? Yeah, they lost in 2013 they lost to Boston. It's 2014, and then they also lose next year to the Rangers, which we'll get to. Central Team 3 in the conference final is Chicago versus Pacific Team 3 LA. I'm only going to say Central and Pacific this season because after that, you'll know what I'm talking about. Atlantic Team 3 Montreal versus Metro Team 2 Rangers. LA beats Chicago in 7, and it's too bad because the Hawks would have three-peated, and it doesn't end up happening. I've talked about that series enough on the channel. There's nothing I can't say that I already haven't said. 8 Atlantic Team 3 Montreal loses to Metro Team 2 Rangers in 6 games, and people from Montreal will forever hate Chris Kreider for taking out Carey Price in Game 1. Dustin Tokarski fielded admirably, but he was not Carey Price. In the finals, it's Pacific Team 3 LA and Metro Team 2 Rangers. Game 1, LA wins 3-2 in overtime. Game 2, LA wins 5-4 in double overtime. And the Rangers had an issue in the series. It's an issue the Hawks also had. They blew leads like crazy. Game 3, the Rangers never had the lead. Is in New York, LA wins 3-0. Game 4, the Rangers force a Game 5 by winning 2-1. But Game 5, 3-2 double overtime victory from Alec Martinez and the LA Kings. Lundqvist will never get his cup because of this. And my hatred for LA was pretty full at that moment. But the Rangers blew leads like candy, to say the least. Kind of like Chicago did in their series. Kopitar leads the playoffs in scoring. 5 goals, 21 assists, 26 points. The leading scorer for the Rangers was Ryan McDonough, who only had 17 points. There were 3 Chicago Blackhawks, 5 LA Kings, who had more points than that. Of course, Justin Williams wins the Conn Smythe, so Mr. Game 7 himself doing the business. Jonathan Quick, not as dominant as he was in 2012, 16-10 with a .911 save percentage and a 2.58 goals against average. Lundqvist is 13-11 with a .927 save percentage and a 2.14 goals against average. Award winners. Art Ross, Sidney Crosby is fully healthy and he's back. With Pittsburgh, he had 36 goals, 68 assists, 104 points. His concussion problems are pretty much over for the rest of his career, which is good. Masterton goes to Dominic Moore of the New York Rangers. Nathan McKinnon wins the Calder of the Colorado Avalanche. Justin Williams, as previously mentioned, wins the Conn Smythe with the LA Kings. Patrice Bergeron wins his award with the Selke. Sidney Crosby wins the Hart with Pittsburgh. Patrick Waugh wins the Jack Adams as Coach of the Year with the Colorado Avalanche. Norris goes to Duncan Keith of Chicago. He wins his second Norris. Andrew Ference of Edmonton wins the Clancy. Interesting. Lady Byng goes to Ryan O'Reilly of the Colorado Avalanche. Ted Lindsay Award goes to Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you realize that the Lindsay seems to always go to Crosby. It ends up going to Crosby because the players know he's the best in the league, even though he wasn't playing 100% at the time. Messier goes to Dustin Brown of the LA Kings. The Rocket goes to Alexander Ovechkin with Washington with 51 goals. The Vezina goes to Tuukka Rask of the Boston Bruins at 36, 15, and 6 with a .930 save percentage and a 2.04 goals against average. The Jennings goes to Jonathan Quick of the LA Kings. So he wins the Jennings. Never won the Vezina Quick, but he still will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We'll start with free agency signings. LeCavalier went to Philadelphia. Briere went to Montreal. Keith Ballard went to Minnesota. Andrew Ference went to Edmonton. Daniel Alfredsson went to Detroit. Alfredsson in a Detroit jersey looked wrong. Ray Emery went to Philadelphia. Valtteri Filppula went to Tampa Bay. Iginla went to Boston after previously nixing the trade to Boston. Mason Raymond goes to Toronto. Komisarek goes to Carolina. Greiss goes to Phoenix. Boyd Gordon goes to Edmonton. Nathan Horton signs a massive deal with Columbus that he would not play for. Rob Scuderi goes to Pittsburgh. Clark MacArthur, in a great comeback story, goes to Ottawa. Michael Ryder goes to New Jersey. Matt Cook goes to Minnesota. Damian Brunner goes to New Jersey. Brendan Morrow goes to St. Louis to finish his career. Mike Ribeiro goes to Phoenix. Pierre-Marc Bouchard goes to the Islanders. David Clarkson iconically signs a 7-year deal with Toronto. Victor Stahlberg goes to Nashville. Matt Cullen goes to Nashville. Not Dale Weiss. Stephen Weiss goes to Detroit. Carter Hutton goes to Nashville. Nikolai Khabibulin goes to Chicago. He comes back at age like 43 or something, and he gets hurt pretty early. I think 4 games. In his 4th game, he got hurt. It was very unfortunate. Tim Thomas goes to Florida. Brizgalov goes to Edmonton. He did not last long. Carlo Koliakovo goes to St. Louis. Dustin Penner to Anaheim. Brad Boyes to Florida. Yager goes to New Jersey. Nathan Gerbe to Carolina. Ryan Whitney to Florida. Scott Gomez to Florida. Douglas Murray to Montreal. Hall Gill to Philadelphia. Mikhail Gabrowski to Washington. Ron Hainsey to Carolina. And Manny Malhotra to Carolina. Trades. So a lot of interesting free agency signings there. June 30th, 2013, however, Nino Niederreiter's trade to Minnesota for Clutterbuck and a third going to the Islanders. Clutterbuck is still with the Islanders. Niederreiter has been to a lot of teams since then, although Niederreiter is definitely the best player in that deal. June 30th, 2013, this is where the collapse of the Canucks begins. Corey Schneider goes to New Jersey for a first to Vancouver. Schneider and Luongo in Vancouver, there were debates on who was going to be the goalie there. Luongo was being said he was too old and couldn't get over the hump, and Schneider played well when he was in, but you see both of them were very good goaltenders. So Luongo ends up being the one that seems to be he's going to go. Schneider's younger, Luongo's older. We're going to send Luongo off. Schneider's going to be the starter. Well, Luongo wasn't very happy with it, and he famously said, "My contract sucks," and when he was trying to be traded. And then at the draft, Corey Schneider goes to New Jersey for the pick that ends up becoming Bo Horvat in that first round. And it's kind of like, I like how the hockey guy put it. He put it excellently. It's like your ex-girlfriend is halfway out the door, and then the new girlfriend moves out right before like the girl leaves fully. And it's like, wait, come back to the ex-girlfriend. And that was the Luongo-Schneider situation. And it's not even over yet. We'll get down to the board later. June 30th, 2013, the Hawks get good value for Dave Bolland, who goes to Toronto for a 2nd and 2/4. June 30th, 2013, the Hawks aren't done. They trade Frolik to Winnipeg for a 3rd and a 5th going to Chicago. For how many few free agency signings the Hawks made, I'm not sure why they didn't really sign anyone, because they had no one really replacing these guys. July 4th, 2013, this is a big deal. Louis Erickson, Joe Morrow, I forgot what, Riley Smith, and Matt Frazier go to Boston for Tyler Seguin, Rich Peverley, and Budden. I'm not sure who Budden is. Going to Dallas. Erickson doesn't last long in Boston, but he played well. And then he ends up signing a very big deal with the Vancouver Canucks. Riley Smith, of course, is part of that deal before he becomes a prominent member of the NHL. Seguin ends up in Dallas, where he still is, and Peverley, he collapses on the bench and goes into cardiac arrest and luckily survives. July 5th, 2013, Bobby Ryan is traded to Ottawa for Jakob Silfverberg, who just retired, Stefan Noesen, who just signed in New Jersey, and a first-round pick going to Anaheim. July 10th, 2013, David Perron goes to Edmonton, and it never felt right, for Magnus Payarvi and a second going to St. Louis. October 27th, 2013, Thomas Vanek goes to the Islanders for Matt Molson and a conditional first, and along with a second to Buffalo. November 14th, 2013, Versteeg is brought back to Chicago along with Staubitz to Chicago for Jimmy Hayes and Rostislav Olej going to Florida. Olej goes back to Florida. Hayes is gone. Rest in peace. But Olej was just a reminder of how much I hated that trade that we made for Brian Campbell. February 6, 2014, Pierre-Marc Bouchard and Peter Regan are also traded to Chicago for a fourth to the New York Islanders. I don't remember Bouchard even playing with the Hawks. Regan I remember. Regan I did like in Chicago. February 28th, we got a big deal here in 2014. Ryan Miller, Steve Ott, and a conditional second and a fourth go to St. Louis for Yaroslav Halak, Chris Stewart, Will Carrier, and a conditional first, along with a first going to Buffalo. Big deal right there. March 4th, 2014, Dustin Penner doesn't last long in his second stint with Anaheim. He goes to Washington for a fourth. March 4th, 2014, Luongo and Stephen Anthony are traded to Florida for Jacob Markstrom and Sean Matthias going to Vancouver. So now you got no goalies from at the start of the year. You had two goalies. You didn't know which one was going to be the starter. Now you had both goalies because you had Eddie Lack in Vancouver, who Tortorella played over Luongo in the Heritage Classic game, which was a decision that should not have been made by Tortorella. But so now your tandem is Lack and a young Jacob Markstrom, who is now in New Jersey. We're getting more into present. We get a lot more notable players that are still playing. Noesen in New Jersey, Markstrom's in New Jersey, Clutterbuck's with the Islanders, Niederreiter. Is he still in Winnipeg? I'm not sure about that one. Schneider just retired recently. Riley Smith is with the Rangers. Sagan's with Dallas. Silfverberg retired. Bobby Ryan retired. Perron is with Ottawa now. Yeah, a lot of guys still here. March 4th, 2014, Washington does their Erat trade by making it even worse. Martin Erat and I'm not sure which Mitchell that is, go to Phoenix for Radislav Klesla, Chris Brown, and a fourth-round pick. So I didn't know Chris Brown played hockey, aside the joke there. Yeah, that was for Philip Forsberg. They got Erat and Michael Lana for Forsberg, and then that's what they ended up with that. One of the biggest mistakes of the 21st century in trades, 100%. March 4th, 2014, David Rundblad and Brisebois go to Chicago for a second, going to Phoenix. Rundblad is a bottom two defenseman. Brisebois never played a game with the Hawks, and I don't even remember him, for a second-round pick going to Phoenix. Those are the trades that people look at Stan Bowman. I did that Stan Bowman video not too long ago now, about a week ago. And what the heck is this? Anyway, March 5th, 2014, Tyrell and Taomina go to Columbus for Marchessault and Smith going to Tampa. At the time, that's a minor league deal. Marchessault ends up getting his start in Tampa. He plays very little with Columbus. He plays in Tampa. And then he ends up in Florida. Rush was history. He gets selected by Vegas in the expansion draft, wins the Conn Smythe, and he just signed with a big deal with Nashville. So for Marchessault, one of my favorite players in the league, and that was the first time he was traded. All that time ago, 10 years ago. That's how long he's been in the league. It's hard to believe. March 5th, 2014, another big deal that probably should not have ever happened. Martin St. Louis and a conditional second go to the Rangers for Ryan Callahan, a conditional second and seventh, and a first going to Tampa. Reason this trade happens is because Lightning GM at the time, Steve Yzerman, left St. Louis off the Olympic team, and St. Louis was not happy and demanded a trade. For St. Louis, was he absolutely wrong to demand a trade? Absolutely in this case. Yzerman, like, he's building an Olympic team. St. Louis is older. There are better players in the league than St. Louis at that point. Still a very good player, don't get me wrong. He's only got one season left in him after this. And I completely disagree with St. Louis that why he demanded a trade. Yzerman, I think, he gets good value for what St. Louis was worth. March 5th, 2014, Ales Hemsky goes to Ottawa for a third, fifth, going to Edmonton. And along with Sean Harkoff being traded to Dallas earlier in the season, that would basically end the last time the Oilers made the playoffs. That was with the last two players from that 2016. March 5th, 2014, Brayden McNabb, someone named Parker, and 2 seconds go to LA for Hudson Fasching, who's with the New York Islanders, and Nick Delorier, who's with the Flyers, I think, maybe? They are traded to Buffalo. March 5th, 2014, Tim Thomas is traded to Dallas for Dan Ellis going to Florida. This was Thomas's last year in the league, by the way. March 5th, 2014, another big deal. Marian Gaborik is traded to the LA Kings for Matt Fradin, and a second and a conditional third going to Columbus. Great deal for what Gaborik brought to the Kings. And while he never finished the next contract he was given, Gaborik would play a big role with the LA Kings this season. March 5th, 2014, Matt Molson and McCormick are traded to Minnesota for Mitchell, 2 seconds going to Buffalo. Buffalo is in full sell mode. They're selling anything that has any worth, to say the least. March 5th, 2014, the other piece of that trade, Thomas Vanek and a conditional fifth go to Montreal for Kohlberg and a conditional second going to the New York Islanders. Islanders and Buffalo, they're just in full sell, along with the Panthers, to say the least. Washington's trying to push toward the playoffs, and it really doesn't work. Although they sold off Erat, they get Kleshla, and it doesn't really work. March 5th, 2014, Detroit makes what I think is a mistake. They trade for David Legwand going to Detroit for Patrick Eaves, Kelly Yarncroke, and a conditional third going to Nashville. Yarncroke is still in the league. Eaves is not, although I think he was older at the time. And the conditional third, I'm not sure what that was. March 5th, 2014, Halak is traded again, this time with a third to Washington for Michael Neuvirth and Radoslav Klesla. So Klesla, after being acquired, Klesla, after being acquired a day earlier, gets flipped right to Buffalo, as Washington says we don't want him. March 5th, 2014, the last trade on the board, as I'm looking down here, Lee Stepniak is traded to Pittsburgh for a third-round pick going to Calgary. So, right there, there's a lot of big deals that happen, a lot of regrettable deals, as a lot of these videos often have regrettable deals. In terms of this season, it was the beginning of a new era of the NHL, a new era where you knew there was going to be expansion because of the way the division format was set. Although nothing had been confirmed, it won't be confirmed until 2016. But yeah, that's going to be all I have for you guys in this one. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Tell me down below what you thought of the 2013-14 season. Tell me down below what you thought of some of these trades, and if you agree with who's a lot like the Luongo Schneider situation, the St. Louis situation, some of the moves that were made by teams that should have probably been rebuilding, like Detroit, among those as well, along with Buffalo and the Islanders fire sale. Anyway, that's going to be all I have for you guys in this one. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video, and I shall see you all in the next one. Have a good one.